No, not yet. Click it again.
It's going. Yeah, it's going now. So I was at a conference this week at University of Technology in Sydney, and toward the end of the presentation, we had a question and answer discussion, and one of the ladies stood up and said, how do we cope with information overload? How do we deal with it? How do we solve the problem of information overload? And I found that last stance, that last perspective from her, how do we solve the problem, to be interesting, because I think there's a way in which we desire to have information overload reduced and minimized, but I also think that the reality is, and this was my response to her, is that information overload is not a problem to be solved. It's a reality to be navigated or a reality to be negotiated. So on almost every level, whether we're talking the growth of mobile technologies, the growth of information, the growth of new tools, social media and other tools to connect with, we're absolutely overwhelmed. And the abundance of information is so substantial that I think it can almost lead to a degree of paralysis. So we really have a few options. One is that we start to reduce our intake of information, which is hard to do given the sheer quantity of what's being produced. We experience it in all aspects of our lives. The second approach, I guess, is to start to make better use of filters. Certainly something that a lot of people do on social media sites, such as using Twitter, blogs, to use your network to help filter information. But even that has a limit once there's just too much of an abundance of information. The other approach, I guess, and the one that I think we need to resolve ourselves to, is acceptance. I think we really have to recognize, the abundance of information, that's just how it's going to be. It's a reality. It's something that we are going to have to live with, and it's something that we have to start reflecting in our school system and the approaches that we're engaged in. So that's something that I think we're starting to make a little more of an understanding on, but at this point still that mindset of we can grasp the information that we encounter and make it make sense, I think is a bit of a leftover from this view of a scarce information setting over the last several hundred years to one where information abundance is now completely different.